that the vaccine rollout process under the COVAX facility is set to be affected following reports that the Indian government will temporarily halt exportation of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. Countries like Kenya are bound to receive lower volumes of the vaccine in the month of March, something that could affect vaccination plans. Let's take a look at this report prepared by our Health and Science reporter, Sada Hassan.
The Ministry of Health announced that people above 58 years of age shall be prioritized in the ongoing Phase 1 vaccination plan because data shows that they are most at risk, accounting for 60% of the recorded deaths.
We are doing the vaccination in phases. Phase 1, which starts from now until 30th of June, targets 1.25 million Kenyans, and then Phase 2 will commence thereafter, target about 9.6 million Kenyans.
But Kenya's vaccination deployment plan seems to be facing an unforeseen obstacle if exports of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine produced by the Serum Institute of India will be suspended. This, India says, is due to the rising COVID-19 cases in the country, which are now more than 11 million with 160,692 deaths registered. According to the Chief of Communication at UNICEF Kenya, Andrew Brown, the COVAX facility would make up for the delayed volumes in the months of April and May. And I quote, "The COVAX facility has informed participants allocated volumes of AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine produced in South Korea that shipment volumes will be lower than planned in March." The second batch of the Covishield vaccine is supposed to be rolled out from July 2021, targeting the most vulnerable, including the elderly and those above 18 years with pre-existing conditions. Kenya has so far received 1.02 million doses of the vaccine, the first batch of the 4.1 million doses out of the 24 million expected doses. Sada Hassan, KTN News.
All right, that's the latest in terms of the ongoing vaccination drive. Those above 58 years have actually been prioritized for the vaccination Phase 1, which is currently ongoing. And still joining us in terms of our panelists to break this down, Mark Bichachi via way of Zoom, PMG Njuguna as well. We're also joined by Kasim Tandaza via way of Zoom, and in studio, Professor Gitile Naituli. I'd like to begin with you, Mark Bichachi. This change of tact, is it welcome move, bearing in mind some of the criticism that has arisen throughout this week in terms of the efficiency in the vaccination drive, in terms of the numbers that the country is actually targeting for the vaccination drive as well? There seems to have been a low uptake of the vaccine. Talk to us about this.
Let me just start by saying that Kenyans indeed are a funny breed. When we didn't have the vaccine, we complained and said the government is not delivering it quickly enough. When the vaccine arrived, we said, no. We want to see how many blood clots are in Europe before we take it. And this is the general problem we have with Kenyan society, where we are always last-minute people, we are always wait and see people. So I'm very glad that the government has opened it up to senior citizens, because if teachers, if medics, some of them do not want to take the vaccine, there is no loss to the country when the elderly take the vaccine. In fact, if I was the Ministry of Health, I would say first come, first serve, because we do not have the luxury or the latitude to allow people who have anti-vaxxer claims, who want to refute science, to take the lead in terms of who should take the vaccine. Also, I think the government needs to very quickly consider legislation against the spreading of fake news. I have seen a doctor who did a video in his vernacular language telling people that they should not take the vaccine. And these are the kind of irresponsible statements that are happening, that are causing people to have fear in having the vaccine. Let us be very clear. Every drug, in fact, everything that you ingest, including air, has the possibility of killing you. Let's just be very clear. Food, the extra sugars in it could kill you. You could take peanut and you have allergies, it could kill you. So please, let us not expect a vaccine that is 100%. And so far, these vaccines have killed no one. So let's stick to the science. If you qualify, please go get vaccinated. And the rest of the country, let's stop blaming the government for the actions of Kenyans who've refused to go take the vaccine. The government cannot put a gun to a teacher's head and tell them, please go and get the vaccine, or to a doctor's head, for that matter, and say, please go and take the vaccine. We need to be responsible citizens. I really wonder, and perhaps we need to reflect on the past. Can you imagine if we refused to use condoms in the 80s and 90s? Where would Kenya be today? But funnily enough, the same doctor I talked about in the 90s was the same guy who was telling people that if you use condoms, you will die. So let's not support such people who are busy spreading rumors and fake news and affecting the uptake of the vaccine.
Bichachi, you seem to absolve the government of any blame. Perhaps talk to us about the preparation, not just in the national government, but county level as well. Well, the CS4 Health, Mutahi Kagwe, did allude to the counties perhaps scaling up the level of preparedness, and it might show the level of unpreparedness one way or the other in the counties in terms of managing this current third wave of the coronavirus pandemic. We know functions follow funds, but talk to us about it.
Jesse, I was speaking specifically about the vaccine because in my view, and I've seen this because I personally took time to visit the vaccination centers, and those vaccines are distributed. But when it comes to government and the preparation for COVID, I have no regret in saying that a lot of the county governments have let the people of Kenya down. This is because they received 5 billion shillings each for COVID preparedness. Many of them did not do so. Also, in the opportunity where the costs of oxygen concentrators, oxygen tanks, and the cost of ICU beds came back to normal, you would have expected that the government and county governments should have ramped up how many beds, how many centers for COVID are there. But what happened is after August of last year, a lot of our leadership rested on its laurels, and that is why we are seeing the stress that is on our healthcare system today. So for me, on that one, I think government and county governments need to pull up their socks.
Okay. Briefly, have you been vaccinated, Bichachi?
He said yes.
Well, I have been. Okay. I took the jab yesterday.
Okay, proper. Let me cross over to Kasim Tandaza and perhaps give us your take on the drive, the vaccination drive. Obviously, the people above 58 are now eligible. But even as you talk to us about this, the prevalence rate of COVID-19 might open up new possibilities of tougher, stringent measures. Just recently, KEPSA gave their take on the ongoing vaccination drive. They wanted a clear vaccination plan provided by the government. They wanted more awareness around the vaccination process as well, and also provide home care guide for patients. Talk to us about some of KEPSA's take on this particular vaccination drive.
Thank you, Jess, and our viewers. One, I would want to ask Mark how he got his jab, if indeed he got it yesterday, because as it is now, the vaccines which are in the country were being given to the front line, those who are more exposed, and it was very clear that they are doing it for the police, for the medics, for the teachers, and for the politicians, for this matter, because we interact highly in our daily duties with the public, and it's something that we can't avoid. And I say that as we do this, please, I hope this time the vaccines will be well guarded and not be out there for sale, because the majority of Kenyans cannot afford to pay for these vaccines. So I hope that we are reading from the same script, because so far, I don't think legally it's not being done privately. It's only through the government stringes. And I don't think Mark is above 58. But for him to have gotten the jab for his health, that will be good, because he needs to be protected. But I'm saying this, expounding on the possibilities of now these vaccines getting out of control and probably being done through corruption or being adulterated and such a thing. Having said that, I think it is also important to mention that the government itself normally lets itself down. It is only 2 days ago when KPMDU came out and said, now we support this vaccine. This is something that should have been done, because sometimes it's natural to trust your own person. Be it in all spheres, we tend to trust our own people. So when it was tested in Europe, it was done in India, it could have been done in China. But what are our experts saying locally here? And to me, the government, I'm saying let's self down, because it takes so long to actually, it's not proactive when it comes to such issues. And this, of course, affects the general public in terms of trust on the way to go. But having said that, it is still, we go back to the basics. At the end of the day, even when we get the 4 million doses, what percentage is it when you are talking of about 60 million Kenyans probably now? Ultimately, we'll get the 24 million, as we said. But what percentage is it? That's the time now it could be 50%. The basics are, and I think this is supported by science, the issue of putting on your masks, washing your hands, social distancing, and this basically costs nothing. You could only talk of the cost of a mask, but now, thank God, it has gone down to about 10 shillings. But people are not practicing that. Move into any part of this country, and people are not practicing that. And it's not just about the general public. Even the leaders themselves don't seem to be practicing this. So why should we leave a very simple method, a very effective method, as the science says, and we really now want to start pinning our hopes on a vaccine, which, as we've said, the manufacturers might not even be able to supply to us. Remember, we are getting this as a grant. What if we are told to buy it? We definitely it will be out of it. So my position is, up to now, I wish we could move away from the peculiar habits of Kenyans, that we always tend to behave differently, that we really strict to the Ministry of Health guidelines. Otherwise, I believe the low uptake will also be contributed by the logistical problems. I understand this is a vaccine which is to be transported at a particular temperature, in a particular way, stored at a particular, go down with the temperatures measured. I don't think, even if we're given another 2-3 months, we'll be having such facilities in Kwale County. And if we are not going to have such facilities in Kwale County, what of the other counties, the far-flung counties, which even the transportation and storage and whatever will be a problem. Right. So we are a long way to go, but all the same, let's avoid rumors, let's go by science, and more so, when there is a cheaper option, let's also go with that cheaper option.
Okay, PMG Njuguna, your take on... Oh, okay, Bichachi, right of reply, sure.
Yes, let me remind Bwana Kasim that Sputnik 5 received clearance yesterday from the government to be shared. And if you have $70, I will send you a link where you can get vaccinated. Iyo haina laini ya serikali.
But I thought that was emergency clearance.
Yes, sir.
Bichachi, wasn't that emergency clearance?
Yeah. It was cleared, so it's available. You can get it from certain clinics.
Okay, we'll interrogate that. Let's just bring in PMG Njuguna. Your take on the ongoing vaccination drive, but even as you give us your take, perhaps shed light on some of KEPSA's take, the private sector alliance, who perhaps were hinting at the curfew about being extended in terms of 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. They want to restrict social gatherings, the government to restrict social gatherings, to restrict Easter and Eid celebrations, limit funerals to 15 persons, enhance border policing, and tougher penalties on defaulters. This is in order to curb the COVID-19 spread, which is quite of a high prevalence rate, going by the level of community transmission and the positivity rate that we're recording throughout the week. Talk to us about this.
Thank you very much. The greatest enemy of the vaccination and COVID-19 management is actually the social media. I have watched in this brief about the Catholic doctors that have come together to destroy the image of the success of the COVID-19, despite the head of the church himself urging people to move and get vaccinated. Article 35 of the Constitution is extremely clear. People have got a right to information and correct information. If any information given to people is incorrect, then people have a right to corrected information. Is all this information in social media correct? Has people been misled through the social media? Who is going to tell us whether it is correct or right? Where are the universities of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, medical schools, Cambridge, and all the rest? Where are the medical doctors associations? Where are those technical experts that are going to tell the social media you got it wrong? Above everything else, what action is going to be taken against those people who have been misleading Kenyans that this is counterproductive? The government has failed because you cannot mislead people and get away with it. It's actually a criminal offense. It's not only constitutionalized, it is also under the statutes of this country.
All right.
So the government should move very fast to take into account every wrong information that has appeared in the social media, and that information also has to be subjected to tests, whether it was correct or wrong. Then appropriate action taken against those people who have been spreading those wrong information. Two, it is the fact that people do not like the government. People, you have to come from understanding that the government is not a fan of the people because it's an enforcer. Anytime you confront an enforcer, chances are that you are going to dislike him or her.
Okay.
And people are getting, the government must create a system of communication that is trusted, that, for example, churches, village elders, can they be taken somewhere, be trained, and then they give that information? Because again, the chance, everybody would want to fight the government. Everyone would want to disbelieve the government. How will the government information be trusted by the local people who have no or trust with the government? Three, why is it difficult for the government to enforce? I want to believe that the Murang'a County government, where I come from, the medical officer of health there, of the CEC there, should send to all schools teachers who has received the jab. If a teacher has not received the jab, then he should not enter the classroom.
Okay.
Because he's a danger to our children. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to the children.
All right.
The enforcement of the government is possible. The government must protect our children. I myself must be protected.
Okay, so PMG, perhaps what you're alluding to...
The enforcement is not a rocket science.
Okay, PMG, perhaps what you're alluding to is a trust level within the country in terms of the dispensation of COVID-19. But let me reel you back to my question in terms of actually tightening the measures put in place. I know you're pointing towards enforcement, but on KEPSA's take, they seem to allude to perhaps extension of curfew hours due to the Eid celebrations, due to Easter celebrations around the corner, and also schools being closed. So my question to you, to close or not to close, to tighten the measures or not to, even as you point to perhaps issues around enforcement? Briefly, PMG.
Total lockdown was due yesterday. When you have got 26 people dead, 28 people dead in a day, when you are crossing over 1,000, you must close the country. Why did we succeed in the first place?
PMG,
We
but at what
succeeded
cost?
because we crossed the country halfway through. Why would you open the bars?
Okay, but at
Because
what cost,
if you
PMG?
look at the rate, because I have read the rates, well, the most possible areas to get COVID-19, are we going to allow people to die so that the economy can grow? Are we going to allow children to school so that, last time I hear the third wave originated from Soweto. That is from the slums. In Kenya, we are very lucky. There have been very few infections in the slums.
All right.
Very few infections, deaths in the slums.
Okay.
What is the damage that the new wave is going to do to the slums?
Okay.
The vulnerable, is this wave so strong that is now going to affect people who have natural immunity? Because I believe people from Kibera have natural immunity. People from Madara have got natural immunity. Are they going to be affected by this? To stop them being affected, close them down.
Okay.
Then close all government expenditure. Why would a minister be going should use more than 10,000 in fuel? Why wouldn't this money be corrected, put somewhere, buy food, buy medicine?
All right.
What are the measures that you're going to take? What are the sacrifices as a country we are going to make to contain what is about to happen?
Okay,
The report we have heard already from Cambridge is that it's going to be worse. What is worse? If 28 deaths is not worse, what is worse?
Okay, well, I think your point is across. We definitely value. We need to value the lives, definitely, but many might argue we also need to balance. Can't shut down the economy totally, bearing in mind we're still reeling from the adverse effects of that. Perhaps a different approach, even as we value the lives of Kenyans. Allow us to take a short break.